Let's give our boys, Blue Jays, a nice round of applause. It was a great season. Welcome back, Raptor fans. It is a somber week for Toronto sports fans. Unfortunately, our Toronto Blue Jays have bit the dust. Unfortunately, we were right on the cusp of victory, but we are now suffering from the agony of defeat. If they hadn't brought it all the way until the 9th and 10th and 11th inning, I think it would have felt at least a little bit better, but we all thought we were going to win. Unfortunately, that's just how sports go. But now, let's move on to some basketball. We're going to talk about the Spurs game. We've fallen behind, of course. Got very caught up in the World Series that Toronto was in all the way until Game 7. But now that that's over, we can talk about some basketball. The Raptors faced the San Antonio Spurs and Victor Wembanyama. And unfortunately, I believe that they got overwhelmed early. It's always going to be intimidating facing somebody who's a star already in his own rights because it's his height, but it's the whole package. Obviously defense, obviously offense. Not so obviously he was training with monks this summer. I mean, I don't think there's anything between those levels of enlightenment. Kevin Garnett and actual monks. Long story short, Wembanyama is a full package, and it's a bit distracting facing him. The Raptors sort of lost their focus facing something and someone so seemingly overwhelming. But really, I think going into a game against Wembanyama, you need a game plan, and the Raptors didn't have one. Of course, it's going to be hard to come up with one against such a formidable force. So hopefully later on, the Raptors do come up with something and play them better the next time around. The Phoenix Suns handed the San Antonio Spurs their first loss just recently, so they're beatable with a game plan. That being said, let's get into the game numbers of this past game. Unfortunately, we did lose. We were coming back near the end, but for a lot of the time in the middle of the game, it was a wide margin. I believe over 20 at some points. We brought it within 10 near the end of the game, but they had taken Victor Wembanyama out. So I'm going to say we are better than the Spurs without Victor. With Victor off the court, it's a totally different story. We dominated at the late parts of the game. They took him out. Most teams flex and take their players out. Their backups play the last few minutes of the game, see who's really been training, who can give them some actual quality minutes when they might need some from somebody. But this wasn't one of those situations. Unfortunately, the Raptors still lost, but they gave them a run for their money right at the end. I think they went on a 9-0 run, and then I think they put Victor Wembanyama back in, and it was a 5-0 run for the Spurs. So it is a drastic difference. He does make a huge difference. Let's get into the numbers. First, we'll talk about RJ Barrett versus Devin Vassell. RJ Barrett's our Canadian homegrown boy, and Devin Vassell, he gives me young Michael Jackson energy. I don't know if you can see the profile video, but he's a dangerous player, but he's a mellow guy. So RJ Barrett shot 50% on 9 of 18 shooting for 25 points, 2 3-pointers, 2 rebounds, 1 stock, which was a steal. His assist to turnover ratio was 1. Unfortunately, his plus minus was minus 13. Again, they just couldn't handle the dynamics of the game when Wemby was on the court. Obviously, he creates some issues for a lot of players. Jakob Poeltl, who was injured leading into the season, was probably feeling some effects of that injury. Unfortunately, he came out of this game injured and has not returned since. But we're hoping that he'll be back by next Wednesday. We lost out on having him as our main center to face already such a formidable center. RJ Barrett versus Devin Vassell. So Devin Vassell shot 50% shooting as well, but he only had 15 points on 5 of 10 shooting. He had 2 3-pointers, 3 rebounds, 2 stocks, which were both steals. His assist to turnover ratio was 1.6. So he had 5 assists and 3 turnovers. Once you hit that 3 turnover mark, it's really hard to have a good assist to turnover ratio. 5 assists isn't bad, but once you have 3 turnovers, it's like you gave the ball away 3 more times. Probably 4 to 6 points may have been scored there some way. So it's not a good thing to be turning the ball over, even if you are assisting the ball. He did have 2 steals, so that sort of makes up for the turnovers. Overall, their team did very well. They play around Victor. It's simple as that. I mean, why wouldn't you? He's such a great player. He's just a rookie. You want him to develop. You want to be one of those guys who are going to be with him throughout his career. You know, we lost the game, but this matchup seems to have gone to RJ Barrett. RJ Barrett is holding his own this entire season so far. A lot of people thought with Brandon Ingram coming into the fold that he would get diminished quite a bit. And if you ask me, I don't know why we're diminishing anything. Why don't we get both of them to play at their peak levels? I don't think anybody could really stop RJ Barrett last season. And if they could, prove me wrong. Prove me wrong. That matchup, I'm going to give it to RJ Barrett. RJ Barrett did do his damn job, and I'm personally satisfied with that. I don't hide my biases here. I like RJ Barrett. This matchup was won by RJ Barrett, although we're going to see later on, there was a lopsided matchup, and it did certainly affect the game. So let's move on to the next matchup, which is Brandon Ingram versus, unfortunately, Harrison Barnes. Again, these guys play around Wembanyama. Some nights it's going to be Harrison Barnes. Some nights it's going to be that kid, obviously Vassell, but I'm thinking of that guy off the bench, Keldon Johnson. I think he's a hidden weapon for them. When they're looking for tough baskets, he's a guy who has the size that will move you out of the way and get him where he needs to be to score that basket. So Harrison Barnes this game, he's a starter, but he's here and there. He's here and there. He used to be on Golden State. He is a solid player. He did have years of scoring 20 plus a game, and in this game he almost scored 20 opposed to our Brandon Ingram, who scored 14. So that being said, let's get into Brandon Ingram, who's had a shooting percentage of .455 on 5 of 11 shooting. He hit no 3-pointers for 14 points, 3 rebounds, no steals or blocks. Fortunately, this game, Brandon Ingram didn't have any turnovers with 5 assists. That's an improvement. That's a huge improvement. All of the games prior to this one, he has had at least 3, and it has crushed his assist to turnover ratio. It doesn't have any specific correlating effect to the game, but maybe that's why he has no steals and or blocks with those no turnovers, is that he had a negative 21 plus minus, which is the highest on the team for this game. Harrison Barnes hit 86% of his shots. He went 6 for 7 for 85% shooting, 86% shooting, whatever it is. He only missed 1 shot, and that really sucks for the Raptors because 4 of those shots were 3-pointers, and he ended up scoring 18 points. No rebounds, just a steal. Let's see, 5 assists, 3 turnovers. His assist to turnover ratio was not the best, but end of the day, his plus minus was 12. When he was on the court, he was doing his thing. Other people weren't. I mean, the Raptors obviously weren't. No one stopped those 3-pointers. When you only miss 1 shot, it's a lack of defense. It's got to be, unless you're just hot that day, maybe. But against the Raptors, you know, we're spoiled as Raptor fans because they had such a great defense for so long. Now is the time where we need to focus on that again. Get good at that again. Make that our staple again. We got the players to do it. And we have some offensive players who sometimes the best defense is a good offense. We've got to have an actual defense first. We have to be able to stop some of these guys and not let them get such easy baskets like in the Mavs game. At the end of the game against the Mavs, it was like a free-for-all. If we can't stop them at the end of the game, we're not really gonna have a chance to win. Yeah, Harrison Barnes, I believe, won this matchup. Brandon Ingram, maybe he was a bit off that night. The Spurs obviously were on. Victor was on. And speaking of Victor, let's get to the next matchup. So we're gonna do sort of a half and half here. Jakob Poeltl got injured during this game, and that is another big reason why we lost the game. How do we expect to win without our starting center when their starting center is Victor Wembanyama? It's not really realistic, to be perfectly honest. He's just going to dominate the position, and he's already dominant. So Jakob Poeltl shot atrocious and injured. We're giving him a bye here for that injury. He definitely has been injured, and since this game he hasn't played. We're hoping he comes back this Wednesday, November 5th. At this time, he is actually injured and not playing. So he tried his best. He played 23 minutes, but he did shoot 1 for 6 for 16 or 17% shooting. It doesn't really matter. 2 rebounds. His assist to turnover ratio was atrocious at 1 assist, 4 turnovers, 20.25. I've never, it's just bad. But yeah, he was injured. He had to come out of this game or around the midpoint of the game-ish. And Colin Murray-Boyles stepped in. Amu a little bit too, but mainly Colin Murray-Boyles. Let's see how he did. So Colin Murray-Boyles was in for 19 minutes, and he shot 53 or 54% on 7 of 13 shooting. He hit 3 3-pointers. He had 3 rebounds. He had an assist, 3 steals. Now, I was doing some research on Colin Murray-Boyles, and apparently he is 6'7" or 6'8". In high school, he came out of high school at 6'8", but now he's 6'7". Whatever. At the combine, he was 6'7" too, apparently. But his wingspan apparently is 8 feet. Is that correct? 7 feet or 8 feet? I don't know. Long story short is that is insane. He's playing center for us. He did his thing. I don't think he's the right guy to necessarily play Victor, but he's one of our backup centers. Mamu being the other. He did as good as he could, but it didn't really affect Wembanyama, who shot a devastating 7 for 8 shots for 24 points on 87.5% shooting. I gotta mention 10 for 10 free throws, 15 rebounds, 4 assists, 4 turnovers for an assist to turnover ratio of 1. It matters not. It matters not. His plus minus was 35. A full grown man of plus minus. Full grown. Not a teenager. Not early 20s. Full grown man. We got to come in with a game plan. This is crazy. We got to come in with a game plan. That matchup was not even a matchup. It was just Wemby versus the world, and the world couldn't handle it. The Spurs strike again. They went 5-0, and then they lost. And I'm thinking that they're going to go on a wild streak this season. They don't even have De'Aaron Fox, who in his own right is a great player. A point guard, plus Devin Vassell, plus anybody they put around these guys. This is Spurs victory this season. Spurs versus the Raptors in the finals, okay? My gosh. It's not safe out here, honestly. In the West, I can't even... I'm so glad we're in the East. This is problematic. I told you Wemby's going to break basketball, so don't be surprised when Wemby breaks basketball. Anyways, Raptor fans, lost 121 to 103. You've got to prepare for Wemby. Simple as that. You cannot be unprepared. He is a force. All right, Raptor Nation and RaptorScope fans, you have a good one. Peace out.